So today I want to talk about anger. Now, nobody wants to hear the phrase, you have anger issues, but in many ways, we all have anger issues because we all have issues that cause us anger. Now, in the YouTube space, you'll find a lot of the love and light things, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. And for the most part, we should all try to control our anger. But you notice it's really hard to control it before it becomes anger. You see what I'm saying? You have to recognize it as anger before you can do anything with it. Now, whether you're in a relationship, out of a relationship, it does tend to have a difference in how you're going to want to handle it. If you're inside of a relationship, you don't want to let that anger build up because you might end up taking it out on your spouse, partner. We all know that person who just, boom, right? All it takes is anything. They drop a dish in the kitchen and they're cursing for 2 hours. We don't want to be that person. Now, the flip side to that is when you've gotten out of a relationship, then things can get a little bit hairy because you don't know if you're talking to that person or not. Some people go no contact. Then there's always the people that just don't want to have any discussions about what happened in the relationship. And that might lead one person to get themselves a nice, big, heavy, big ball of anger. So what do? Well, you can do all the things, right? You can have scream therapy. You can get in your truck and go to the park and close the windows and scream and yell. I don't know who you're going to yell at. I guess you could yell at God. You could yell at the universe. You could yell at your ex-wife, ex-husband, whoever it is. I don't know if they're going to hear you. That's one way to handle it. And sometimes that can work. But what I want to talk about today is actually holding on to that anger enough to use it. Now, I'm not suggesting going and doing anything physical, right? Even though usually when you're in a relationship, the part that you don't want to get to, obviously you never want to take out your anger in physical with anybody. But the part, especially when you're out of a relationship, is you never want to get to the point where you are threatening to expose where all the bodies are buried, so to speak, right? If you're in a relationship with somebody long enough, you both know where all the bodies have been buried. If you get to the point where you start thinking about exposing yourself just to expose them, well, now you know you might want to, you see what I'm saying? It's like that. You might want to figure out what to do. Now, it has been my experience, two things. Number one, anywhere that you watch, read, anything that you read about manifesting or how to use energy, it's always positive, 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 to the point where sometimes it can be toxic positivity. Now, my personal experience has been when I am trying to manifest, or if I am trying to solve a problem, or if something is just not quite working right, 100% of the time, when I just finally get fed up and I've had enough, all of a sudden, whatever button that presses in me, it works. So, can you do that on purpose? Sure. Find an outlet. All right? You've got this anger. You don't want to take it out on the person that you're angry with. My suggestion is to find something that you need extra motivation for. Okay? Now, if you've been out of a relationship and you were looking for some sort of justice, or you feel you were wrong somehow, maybe you can use that anger to acquire some success for yourself, and then the success can be your justice. That's the biggest thing that I've noticed with me and a few of my friends as well, is that sometimes enough is enough, right? Sometimes that is the only spot where things actually move forward, where you just finally say, you know what? I'm done. I'm sick of this. I'm not dealing with this anymore. I shouldn't have to deal with this. I don't want to deal with this, and I'm done dealing with it. So what kind of example can I give you? Well, it's not necessarily something that I have anger about, but this is a way that it can work. Now, my St. Bernard Fluffy passed away in July, and as he went, he lost the use of his limbs. And on the last day, I had to pick him up off of the floor and place him on his bed. Now, he was 150 pounds, and I was on my knees. I'm not a young guy. That took every ounce of strength that I had. Now, I'm not necessarily angry about that, but there are a lot of feelings that come up when I think about that. And you could say I'm kind of angry that he had to go through that. Now, How am I using that? You wouldn't believe it. Now, I've been in the gym since I was 13 years old. I'm 53. Once you get to a certain level of physical condition, it's kind of hard to knock out rep number 9 and 10. If you've got enough weight there and it's heavy and you're like 6, 7, 8, all right, it's good. I'm fine. 8. How am I getting the number 9 and 10? Well, number 9 and number 10 are me thinking about lifting Fluffy off of the floor onto his bed. That's how I'm using that energy. So that is something that would be considered, whether you want to call it anger, frustration, grief, whatever you want to call it, or grief, I should say, whatever you want to call it. I'm taking something that would be considered a negative emotion, and I am using it in a way that will become a positive net benefit for me. That's the way you want to use these things, because like I said, you don't want to get angry and yelling and screaming at the people that you're mad at. It's not going to do you any good. And the other thing, simply put, sometimes you try to get rid of the anger and you just try and you try and you try and you try and you try. It won't go anywhere. Sometimes the anger is over something that you feel you need a closure on, you need answers on. And if those things aren't going to come, you're going to have to find a way to use that energy. That's the best advice that I can give you. Now, there are going to be some places that say you should never manifest from anger. You should never allow yourself to feel that strongly about something that somebody else did. Now, there is a little bit of truth to that in the sense that if you feel you were wrong in a certain way, of course, we all have our inner lessons to learn. But sometimes those inner lessons are simply, why did I tolerate that? Why did I allow myself to be treated that way? Those are also things that you can use in a positive way if you take the energy that you're feeling, if you just sit with it and you just let that feeling come up. The feeling, you get the heart palpitations, you start to get that little sweat on the top of your head. Allow yourself to feel that. And then you harness that energy, whether it be for rep number 9 or 10 at the gym, whether it be that you're finally going to walk into your boss's office and say, hey, enough is enough. Whatever way that you're going to use it, the only way I would suggest is don't necessarily use it in relationship. Don't do this in relationship. If you're upset with something that somebody did, don't sit there and get yourself all wound up to go talk to them. I'm talking about your own personal private practice. Allow yourself to feel it. Find a way to use it positively. I promise you, you will see results.